I suppose it was in the mid to late 60s that Glenn Campbell had a big hit entitled Dreams of the Everyday Housewife. The song begins like this. She looks in the mirror and stares at the wrinkles that weren't there yesterday and thinks of the young man that she almost married. What would he think if he saw her this way? She picks up her apron in little girl fashion as something comes into her mind, slowly starts dancing, remembering her girlhood and all of the boys she had waiting in line. And then the chorus, oh, such are the dreams of the everyday housewife. You see everywhere, any time of the day, an everyday housewife who gave up the good life for me. Think about that last statement or that last phrase. An everyday housewife who gave up the good life for me. Do you see the subtle implication of that statement? In the minds of so many people today, a housewife is someone who has given up the good life. Her life as a wife and a mother is dry and boring. It's dull. It's oppressive. Almost from the moment of birth. In our society today, a girl is encouraged to grow up to be independent, career-minded, and self-interested. A girl is now pushed into academics or athletics at a very early age. All through her school years, the goal is set for her to go to college and ultimately a career. Young women in our society today are encouraged to be aggressive and assertive. It comes as no surprise when I tell you that we live in a society today in which the role of wife and mother is minimized and sometimes even criticized and ridiculed by so many in our society. During the fall 1992 presidential campaign, when Hillary Clinton was asked why she chose a career in law, she replied, I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas. Ladies and gentlemen, radical feminism wants to abolish the role of housewife and mother in our society. One writer says, marriage has existed for the benefit of men and has been a legally sanctioned method of control over women. We must work to destroy it. The end of the institution of marriage is a necessary condition for the liberation of women. Therefore, it is important for us to encourage women to leave their husbands and not to live individually with men. That statement came from a document entitled The Document, Declaration of Feminism. Vivian Gornick said, being a housewife is an illegitimate profession. The choice to serve and be protected and plan towards being a family member is a choice that shouldn't be. The heart of radical feminism is to change that. Those statements are frightening to me and very troubling. Perhaps, however, our society's greatest injustice to women is not that motherhood is being ridiculed, but that motherhood is being ignored. How many TV moms are portrayed on the silver screen these days? And of the few that are depicted at all, how many are portrayed as housewives and homemakers? The days of Laura Petrie, Lucy Ricardo, June Cleaver, and Harriet Nelson are long gone in today's society. I'm glad that our society sets aside a day in the course of a year to pay tribute and honor to mothers. And I want to do that in our study together this morning. And the first thing that I want to say is that whereas the role of wife and mother is ridiculed by so many in our society, it is exalted and praised by our great God. The wise man writes in Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 4, "An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who causes shame is like rottenness in his bones." In Proverbs 18 verse 22, the wise man says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." In the next chapter, verse 14, the wise man says, "Houses and riches are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord." The English essayist Alexander Pope said, "All other goods by fortune's hand are given. A wife is the peculiar gift of heaven." And then in that well-known passage in Proverbs chapter 31, the wise man says in verse 10, "Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies." The role of housewife and mother is a role that is exalted and praised by our God. And the role of housewife and mother is exalted and praised by God because what these women do is so vitally important. While the primary responsibility for raising children is placed squarely on the shoulders of fathers, it is the mothers who do the primary work of raising our children. It's moms who teach their children to walk and talk and read and write. It's our mothers who prepare the food that causes their little bitty bodies to grow and mature and develop into young men and women. It's our mothers who teach our children to share and be nice and be kind. It's our mothers who teach our children to work. It's mothers who make a house a home. It's the wife and the mother who is the one who makes a man's home his castle. It's easy to tell the difference between a house that has had a woman's touch and one who has not. When I first moved to Johnson City, Tennessee, I lived in an apartment, and I had one thing on my wall. It was one of these printer's trays, that kind of a knick-knack kind of tray. And that one thing was on my wall because two of the ladies in the congregation helped me move in, and they washed stuff up and got the kitchen things in order. And while I was out running errands, doing whatever, they were the ones that put that printer's tray on the wall. If they hadn't done it, it wouldn't have been there. My thinking is, well, that's just holes I won't have to patch when I move out. You can tell the difference between a house that has had a woman's touch and one that has not. And then, folks, wives and mothers need to be exalted and praised because what they do is hard work. Hester Mundis said, "There is no such thing as a non-working mother." Someone else has observed, "We are now told that automation is a process that gets all the work done while you just stand there. When we were younger, this process was called mother." Irma Bombach wisely observed, "I don't expect anyone to fully appreciate that a mother makes more decisions in one morning than the Supreme Court makes in 3 years." If you're not familiar with the name Irma Bombach, she was a humorist who did a lot of writing about the home and the family. And I want to share something from an article that she wrote entitled "Husband in Charge." It's a bit lengthy, but I think you'll appreciate her words. She writes, "About 3 weeks ago, I was summoned to Ohio to help my mother, who had had minor surgery and was going to be flat on her back for a few weeks. 'Are you sure you can handle things around here?' I asked my husband. 'The kids, the cooking, the laundry, the routine?' He replied, 'Does Dean Martin know how to make a drink?' 'Of course I can handle this stuff. Don't worry about it. You just go off and do what you have to do and don't give us a thought.' I didn't give them a thought until I was paged at the airport just before my flight took off. 'One quick question,' said my husband. 'What does bueno na nu mean?' 'Who said it?' 'What do you mean, who said it? Your baby just said it and looked kind of desperate.' 'It means I have to go to the bathroom.' 'Oh, well, that's all I needed to know. Have a good—' 'It also means I want a cookie. Where are my coloring books? The dog just crawled in the dryer. There's a policeman at the door. I am floating my $20 orthopedic shoes in the John.' This was written several years ago. 'The kid has a limited vocabulary and has to double up. I can handle this. It's just that she looks so miserable.' It also means it's too late for the bathroom." I said, and ran to catch my plane. There was a message awaiting me at Mother's, and I called home before I unpacked. "What's up?" "No problem," he said cheerfully. "It's just that Maxine Milshauer just called and can't drive the carpool tomorrow because she's subbing for Janice Winterud on the bowling team. She can pick up unless it rains. Her convertible top won't go up. However, if the weather is decent, she can pick up and trade with Joe Caldwell, who is pregnant and 3 weeks overdue, but who is a doctor who was weak in math. That means I will drive Thursday unless Joe Caldwell's doctor lucks out. In that case, I'll have to call Caroline Seal because I have an early meeting and it might rain. Do you understand any of this?" "No." "I'll call you tomorrow night." The next night I answered the phone. There was a brief silence. Then, "Well, I hope you're happy, Missy. I am now the only 38-year-old boy in my office who has been exposed to roseola. I was late for work because little Buster Smarts was eating chili off the dashboard of my car and spilled it all over the upholstery, and my job is in jeopardy." "Why is your job in jeopardy?" I asked. "Because your son answered the phone this morning while I was putting ketchup on sandwiches, and I heard him tell Mr. Weems, 'Daddy can't come to the phone now, he's hitting the bottle.' Tomorrow is Saturday. It'll get better, I promised." The phone rang early Saturday. "Hello," I giggled. "This is Dial-A-Prayer." "Oh, you're cute," he snarled. "Real cute. Just a couple of questions here. First, where are the wheels off the sweeper?" "On the back of the bicycle in the garage." "Check. Where does the washer walk to when it walks?" "It never gets any further than the door." "Check. When was the last time you were in the boys' bedroom? 1969. Check. What do you do when you have perma-scorched all the perma-press? I'll be home in 2 days, I said. When he didn't call me on Sunday, I called him. I can't talk now, he said irritably. Why not? What's the matter? Nothing is the matter. I bought a box of chicken for dinner and the box caught on fire in the oven. You're supposed to, don't say it or I'll hang up. Then your baby chose a rather inopportune time to get a penny stuck up her nose. I've got 35 boys in the bathroom watching movies. I just tried to make a drink and there's no ice cubes. And besides, Maxine just called and I've been named homeroom mother. I arrived home early in the morning before the family was up. My husband staggered to the door. My wife gives at the office, he mumbled. I'm home, I announced. Tell me, why is there an X chalked on the side of our house? He rubbed his eyes tiredly. A babysitter put it there. I think we've been marked for demolition. I wandered through the house thinking it was too late. The dog was drinking out of an ashtray. There was a pad of blank checks by the phone with messages scribbled on them. The blackboard had a single message on it. I am leaving. I am not coming back. Daddy. Why is the baby sleeping in the bathtub? I asked. She drank 4 glasses of water just before bedtime. There is a crease on your face shaped like a duck. I had to separate the boys, so I slept in the baby's bed. I opened the refrigerator, a leftover reached for me, and I slammed the door. After breakfast, my husband smiled and leaned over to kiss the boys goodbye. They turned away. He murdered our guppies, one of them snapped. We'll talk about it tonight, he said. Then he turned toward me. Goodbye, dear. You'll find everything shipshape. I mean, all you have to have is a routine. By the way, he whispered, could you call and let me know how Lisa makes out on As the World Turns? As I watched him swing toward the garage, I thought to myself that he looked too old to be carrying a Donald Duck thermos, a security blanket, and sporting a red rash on his neck. Wives and mothers need to be exalted and praised because what they do is hard work. And most of us guys couldn't hack it. But more than all of that, wives and mothers need to be exalted and praised because what you do is so vitally important. Lloyd Wood, in a poem entitled Mothers Are, wrote, mothers are blowers of noses and washers of ears, smoothers of bump spots and wipers of tears, bathers of babies and umpires of spats, finders of boots and mittens and hats, helpers with lessons and makers of beds, shakers of dustcloths and combers of heads, button-sew-oners and winders of clocks, menders of dresses and darners of socks, tellers of stories and readers of books, judges and juries of conduct and looks, doctors of heartaches and hearers of prayers, generals directing all family affairs, tenders of home fires and builders of men. Oh, for the gift of an adequate pen. In 1865, William Ross Wallace wrote a poem that at that time was entitled What Rules the World. And that poem begins, they say that man is mighty. He governs land and sea. He wields a mighty scepter o'er lesser powers that be. But a mightier power and stronger man from his throne has hurled. For the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. Ladies, if you fail in your job, it doesn't much matter what the rest of us do. If housewives and mothers are exalted and praised by God, they should be exalted and praised by man. The fifth of the Ten Commandments reads, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. The Apostle Paul quotes this commandment in his instructions to the saints in the city of Ephesus. The old law of Moses commanded children to honor and to respect their parents. Leviticus 19 verse 3 reads, every one of you shall revere his mother and his father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. And near the end of that great tribute to the worthy woman, the wise man says, her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Finally, may I say to you this morning that the role of wives and mothers, let me state that differently. Wives and mothers should be promoted and protected by men. In a day and age when many wives and mothers are ignored and rejected by so many, New Testament Christians need to promote God's arrangement for the home. And there are things that husbands can do. First of all, we can love our wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her and cleanse her by the washing of the water with the word. The love of Christ for his church was a giving, sacrificial love. He gave himself for his bride. And he gave himself to sanctify, to set apart his bride and to cleanse her, to make her better. Husbands, we must follow the example of our Lord and love our wives as he loved his church, in a sacrificial, giving way. We must set her apart from all others in our heart and in our life. And we must make it easier for her to be better. You know, some husbands make it harder for the wife to be good because of their terrible example. When we're not making it easy for our wife to be good, we're not loving her as Jesus loved his church. We're not doing what Jesus wants us to do. Husbands, you can help by providing leadership in your home that God intends for you to provide. It is the husband and the father who is intended to be the spiritual leader in the home. In too many homes today, it's not the man who is the leader, the spiritual leader in the home, it's the woman. In 40 plus years of preaching, I have seen that over and over and over again. And when husbands are not the spiritual leader in their home, they are failing in their responsibility before God. You must provide leadership in your home. You can help by providing for your families. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be married to a no-count bum who lays around the house and doesn't work, doesn't provide for his family. You can help by helping out around the house, and Kathy says, amen. But there's something that children can do. There's something that you can do to help honor and exalt your mother. And the first thing that you can do is listen to your parents' instruction. In Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 8, the wise man says, "My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother." I think it was Mark Twain who said that when he left home at 17, he thought his dad was just about the dumbest fellow around, and when he returned when he was 21, he was just amazed at how much his father had learned in those 4 short years. Well, we know what that means, don't we? Children can help honor mom and dad by listening to their instruction. Now, let me say something to mom and dad here. Mom and dad, you've got to teach your kids to listen to you while they're young. You can't wait till they're teenagers to teach them that lesson. You've got to teach your kids to listen to you while they're young. And if you don't do that, you're going to have all kinds of trouble when they get to be teenagers. And then children can obey mom and dad. And children can honor their parents. You are not honoring your parents when you sass back. And you are not honoring your parents when they tell you to go out and mow the yard and you slam the door on your way out. And then you can help out around the house. And mom and dad, you've got to teach your kids to do that. They're not born with an innate understanding about that. You've got to teach your kids that there are things that have to be done around the house that you're not going to get a paycheck for. That's a lesson they've got to be taught. It's a lesson they've got to learn, and you've got to teach that lesson. But then you can live a life that will bring honor and glory to your parents. Too many parents have broken hearts because their sons and daughters have been little hellions. And that's not honoring mom and dad. But then, folks, there's something that older women can do. Nope, I haven't got to that point yet. Ladies, there's something you can do to make things better in your home. You can quit trying to do it all and have it all. First of all, none of us can do it all, and none of us can have it all. No matter how much money you have, you can't have it all. And it wouldn't be good for you if you did. Barbara Crafton writes, women are sometimes annoyed because their families don't respect their commitment of energy their work requires. We come home exhausted and we are supposed to be Mother of the Year and Playmate of the Year. Don't let them expect that. They can probably get along with less in terms of glowing performance if we give them a lot in terms of presence. There's nothing wrong with an exhausted mother cuddling her child after a dinner that came out of a can. The cuddle will be remembered. The can will be forgotten. Secondly, may I say to you, you can enjoy your role as wife and mother. And that's something that may not come naturally to you, but it is something that you can learn. You can learn to enjoy your role as wife and mother. There's something that other Christians can do to protect and promote motherhood. And that's why I asked John to read to us from Titus chapter 2, where Paul instructs Titus to teach older women to teach younger women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home. I remember my dad saying when I was a boy that Paul said chaste, C-H-A-S-T-E, not chaste, C-H-A-S-E-D. There's a big difference. Being a good wife and mother does not always come naturally. It's something that must be taught. And it can be taught. And it can be learned. My friend D. Bowman wrote many years ago, there are few things in life that rival the beauty of the woman. She defies all attempt at description. She is adorned with the beauty of a butterfly. She is possessed of the tart of the citrus, the honey of the field, the taste of life. She is cunning like a fox, as wise as the owl, as helpless as a lamb. She is the keeper of man, the mother of his children, the teacher of wisdom, the molder of public morality. She is doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. She is druggist and dry cleaner. She is the best of God's gifts to man. And when she is adorned in the feminine frock of frills, ribbons, and bows and lace, she is at her best. She is woman, the most alluring of God's creatures. A little frail? Yes. A little emotional at times? Surely. A little overreactionary at times? Certainly. But through it all, she is woman, the crowning jewel of God's creation. And she was never meant to be anything else. But thank you for all your sacrifices, for all your work, for all your love. Let's stand and sing. I'll fly away. Of that morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore.